Hi everyone, it's Yvette Blowitz from SPAITGIRL.com and welcome to Feel Good From Within. I'm super excited to be here with you today and with our very special guest, Jacqui Lewis. Jacqui Lewis is the founder of The Broad Place. She's also a writer, an educator, and a speaker. Today we're going to be talking to her about her brand new book, The 14-Day Mind Cleanse, your step-by-step detox for more clarity, focus, and joy, which has been published by Murdoch Books. Jacqui Lewis, how are you today?
I'm really excited. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
I want to welcome our global audience. I'm super excited to be here with you today and Jacqui also to have this incredible conversation. First of all, Jacqui, how does it feel to see your book officially published and out now, available at all bookstores in Australia, major retailers? It's available online through booktopia.com.au. How does it feel?
It feels thrilling. And it's like a level of vulnerability that goes with it as well, because it's such an enormous body of work. Writing books really reframe for me when I'm in a bookstore. I just see like eons and eons and eons of like blood, sweat, and tears encased in cardboard. It's a big moment as a writer to have your book out in the world and to receive the feedback, and it's really, really thrilling.
It's such a beautiful book. Congratulations on it. Before we dive into your book, are you happy to tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
So I came from creative and communications backgrounds and then started The Broad Place almost a decade ago. And essentially it was a solution to something that I really wanted for myself, which was an intersection between spirituality and self-development and education that wasn't too woo-woo and out there, that wasn't too adrenaline and hyped, and was really applicable because I'm a mom, I work full time, I want to do all the things to take care of myself. But I found that in particular at the moment, there's such a big movement towards self-care, which on one hand is such a beautiful thing. And then I also think people feel really guilty and ashamed that they can't do these like long-winded self-care rituals and take better care of themselves. I really want to just distill beautiful tools and practices down for people that have a lot on their plate so that they can approach them in a way that works for them. So we've spent the last decade teaching all over the world, pre-COVID, to travel 5 months of the year through America and Europe, through Asia, host retreats in India, and then have spent the last 2 years battening back down the hatches in Australia. Obviously, like everyone, pivoted a lot to online, but it's just been a remarkable, particularly the last 3 or 4 years for me as a teacher and facilitator. There's been such a huge interest in taking care of oneself. And the pandemic really drove that message home. I think that without all the exciting trimmings of life, we all realize that actually our mental health needs to be a primary focus, because without it, life can become really challenging really quickly.
How did your initial meditation journey unfold?
Strangely, I started meditating without really knowing what I was doing when I was a little kid, because my little brother was born disabled and we spent an enormous amount of time in hospitals. And from that, I would do this little practice. I would sit and I would close my eyes and come inward. I didn't know what I was doing, but it felt really calming and peaceful. And I was also a really hyperactive kid. So it was like a bit of an antidote to my tearing around everywhere. And then when I was 18, and this is a long time ago, right? So I went to a yoga class and there was no Lululemon then. There was no like beautiful modern studios. It was sort of like a bit smelly in the community hall and you'd wear your tracksuits. I did my first yoga class then, and at the end of the class, the teacher got us to sit down and close our eyes and walked us through this experience. And I was like, I know this. Like I used to do this when I was little. And so that started off my journey into meditation on a really deep level. So, that was 24 years ago. I've explored a million, it feels like, different lineages, trying to find like the pieces that really fit, particularly for modern life. For me, it's a daily practice now. It hasn't always been, but it's something that when you do every single day, especially when you don't want to, it really has transformational results.
And for someone listening in, they go, wow, Jacqui, I want to do meditation, but I'm too busy. I feel like I don't have enough time. Could you share some tips for them how they could fit a meditation practice into their busy life?
Absolutely. So the first thing I'm going to do is preface it with saying that for anyone listening, if you've tried meditation and you think, I can't do it, I feel you. And you probably just haven't tried the right style of meditation. I get feedback all the time from people going, oh, my mind is so busy. I don't necessarily want to sit down and listen to someone talk at me through headphones when I'm meditating. Or they try a concentration technique, try to clear their mind of thoughts, feel like it's completely futile and get really frustrated. So I know that experience really well. But mantra-based meditation is really fabulous for the modern mind. So it's working with particular sounds. And one of the reasons I wanted to include an actual practice in the 14-day mind cleanse was because so many books talk about how great meditation is. And it's like one big brochure. And then you finish the book and you're like, okay, I still don't know how to meditate. So I really wanted there to be an actual technique that's taught in the book. And it's 10 minutes and it's once a day. So it's less than 1% of our day in order to sit to meditate. And I found that is really approachable, and it gives people enough of a framework that they can actually sit for 10 minutes every day. And the results are really fascinating. They happen quickly. The mantra helps soothe the mind. It's like a little anchor. That's where I'd recommend people start, is just with something that's approachable. I think 10 minutes is the minimum you want to do. I see a lot of people going, oh, you can do 2 minutes. I'm like, well, I disagree. 10 minutes is a solid starting point. That's what I'd always recommend. And the other thing I would always say is you have to put in your calendar. I've never had someone tap me on the shoulder and has gone, you know what, you look really busy. Like, why don't I do all your tasks to take care of yourself and meditate? I have to schedule it in. I schedule all my meditations in to make sure that I get them done. Otherwise, I just won't find the opening in my calendar.
I love those tips, Jacqui. They were incredible tips. I do 10 minutes a day and I have it in the morning, and it's my ritual and my go-to. And I have tried to do longer amounts, but realistically, I can always get minimum 10 minutes in regardless. There's so much in your book. And one of the things I really loved was that you help people to create a custom morning ritual for more grace in their life. Are you able to share a little bit of an insight into the morning ritual?
So I used to never have a morning ritual. I mean, there was a phase where I was working in hospitality of an evening, running a restaurant. I would wake up really early. I'd have to get my kid ready, walk the dog, get into work. And we had a creative advertising marketing agency. And it was just like all the things were flowing and tipping into another. I'd fit in my meditation and that was it. But what I really noticed through a lot of the ancient lineages, so if you look at Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, the Taoist lineages, even Buddhist lineages, they have these beautiful little sequences that start the day. Once I started incorporating these, and I started very simple, it was have a cup of hot water and then meditate. And then I would sort of layer in like have a cup of hot water, 3 minutes of stretching, and then meditate. But the sequencing, what it does is it creates this enormous stability in the mind and body. It's the same as with little kids. So they love, you do this and then you do that. And when you're sleep training a baby, you'll maybe feed them, give them a little bath into bed, play the same song on their little mobile. But it's that stability, that repetition that creates this enormous sense of peace. And that's the thing I think we're all seeking. We want stability, and a lot of the world feels out of our control, but we can own these little pockets in the day, and they really set us up for enormous success. And I have taught some of the busiest, most under pressure CEOs in the world, right? Like they are, I mean, talk about under the pump and juggling boards and so many things. And the morning routine, creating that little sequence and meditation set has transformed the way in which they work. It's a powerful technique.
And what does your morning ritual look like?
My morning ritual now will shift depending on what I'm doing on that particular day. It will always include meditation. It usually includes some form of stretching or a yoga class. And I also practice Zen tea ceremonies. They're a much longer indulgence. And on the days that I have the time and the space, I'll invest in that. I will say this, the more time I carve out in the morning, which initially for me felt really indulgent, right? Like I was like, oh, who could do this? The more productive I am in the day. There is a deep correlation between that steadiness early in the morning and setting oneself up for success for the day ahead, and how productive we are. And I used to think, how fast can I get at my desk? How quickly can I get onto my to-do list? And now I push that out a little bit. It sounds counterintuitive and counterproductive, but it means that the day is so much more flowing. And my clarity which is what I really need to do my job properly, is so much greater. Because I remember being told this and I was like, oh, please. As if, but it really works. If you experiment with it, and this is the beautiful thing about the book, is you get guided through a whole process. Then what starts to happen is you can start to feel into it for yourself. It's really beautiful.
You have children. Do you have to get up earlier?
Our daughter's almost 16, so she sort of runs her own show now. When she was little, absolutely. You've got to make them breakfast. God, they take so long to get dressed. You always put your shoes on. I used to get up really early in order to have a bit of a morning practice.
Yeah, right.
I had one. I've got lots of friends and students who have 3 and 4 kids, and it's carnage in the morning. If they invite their kids into the morning ritual, it's really, really powerful. Anxiety's on the rise with little ones. The 14-day mind cleanse, I've had a lot of teenagers already start to do it, and a lot of people are doing it with their children, little kids from the ages of like 6 and 7, and the kids are loving it. They love the sitting still. They naturally like that little ritual. They love ritual. They love routine. They're like learning about themselves. The journaling questions in there, they really like to answer. I mean, some of the feedback I've had, I'm like, oh my God, who are these like little Buddhas running around? Insightful information. So I would always say that as a parent, get the family involved. It makes the whole thing a lot easier.
With COVID, it really triggered a mental health crisis. And so many people are feeling the effects still and still coming out of the trauma and the shock and the change of life. Now, one of the things I really loved was you shared the digital disconnection every day for 1 hour. Can you share more about this?
I mean, I love technology. I just want to preface it with that. I'm on Instagram and I'm constantly connected. I mean, my phone, like, I read the New York Times, I read the New Yorker, like they're all apps. Like everything is on my phone, they're app. And I've got an iPad, I've got my laptop, I've got my desktop. I have a lot of tech in my life. But when I learned the science around that, if we look at a screen in the hour before we go to bed, it reduces the quality of our sleep by 30 to 35%. I was so gobsmacked. And if we're lucky enough to be getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep, then we're eroding 2 to 3 of those quality hours by looking at a screen. I'd also brought up the question for me, because I know students do this too. They wake up, their alarm goes off, it's their phone, and then they start to scroll. And then we very rarely have a moment in the day when we're not connected to technology now. And then we get to the end of the day and we're still looking at it as like the treat or reward at the end of the night. The power down hour, it's not meant to be something that you do for the rest of your life. The whole idea with the 14-day mind cleanse is it's a reset. It's a total reboot for your mind so that you can have a detox, you can gain the clarity you need, so you can make more empowered decisions moving forward in your life. And there's about 10, 11 days there where you power down, and the results are profound. People can't believe how much more clarity, how much more stability emotionally, how much more motivated they feel. And that's due to the rest. Really good quality sleep at night. We had a lot of our students have really disturbed sleep through the pandemic. Waking up a lot. I mean, we all did it, right? We're in lockdown. Our hours got really weird. We're sort of emailing at 6 o'clock in the morning and maybe 10 o'clock at night, but taking a weird chunk off in the middle of the day. It was just an odd time. So creating that structure and having that single hour of no tech before bed. The thing that always fascinates me is, because I remember it so vividly when I started, I'm like, what am I going to do with this hour? And it was going back to reading books. It was having a hot bath. It was having a really beautiful nighttime ritual and routine. And that slowing down of the nervous system and that gliding into bed, as opposed to a lot of what we're looking at on tech, let's face it. We're looking at comparison when we're on social media. We're doom scrolling through the news, like, oh gosh, what's happening now? What's happening in that part of the world? And that's a lot for our subconscious and conscious to hold on to as we then go to bed. So having that little space, that little window, I mean, the benefits are amazing. So that's when I always recommend people start with. I'll also preface by saying it's the hardest of all the tools in the book. People like turn their phone off and they put it over there. And you're like, what's that guy's name again? I should Google it. What's in my calendar? What's in this thing now?
And I think it's so beneficial for the younger generation, especially those in high school. They're having already insomnia, sleeping difficulties with tech. And if this can be such a gift to them, just that 1 hour powering down, and even for anyone tuning in, I know for my own mental health, it's had profound effect. It's really helped. And It takes discipline and hard work, because you're so right. Oh, I just need to Google. No, it's power down.
Like, or I forgot to WhatsApp my friend overseas and now they're awake. I mean, there's a million things that we could be doing on the
Exactly.
inside.
At some point in time, we need to wind down. You start your book by saying why you will love a clean, clear mind. Why did you want to open your book with that introduction?
I feel that most people, if not now, have had moments of deep overwhelm, anxiety. It's really interesting because I work with a huge plethora of people. I work with kids from the age of 5. I've worked with people up to the age of 94, right? And every person that I've worked with, when you start to get to know them better and you scratch below the surface, has pockets of feeling down, feeling overwhelmed, feeling incomplete. And they keep compacting until we do a stop and a reset. And I think there's also a lot of shame around, I should feel better, or I should be able to manage my emotions, and I should be more positive. And I also want to say that I think that self-development and spirituality are wonderful things, but often they can also have this, you should be more positive. And it's like being rammed down our throats. And people then feel like, well, I'm not feeling positive and I'm not feeling great and I don't know what to do about it, but I guess I just keep smiling and get my way through. I wanted to create a point of empathy with people, that we don't always feel like that. As humans, we're textured and complex and multifaceted, and we need a hand often. We need someone to hold our hand and walk us through a process. We need really simple tools. We don't need to read 16 philosophy books, to be able to understand the message. I really wanted to distill it right down so that anyone at any moment could pick it up and go, oh, I can actually start to be more in control of my own joy, be more in control of my own clarity, and be more empowered and feel more confident. For me, it's a domino effect. You get one of the dominoes tipping and then they all start to flow. And when we're stuck in a rut, it's really nice to have one thing that can pull us out and then the others lead in. So that was really the intention behind that, was to be able to connect with people and for everyone to be able to go, yeah, in a moment in time, I might also need a hand.
I love that. What I do love about your book is how simple it is to consume. So if you're feeling down or depressed or overwhelmed and you've just got your mind chatter 100 miles per hour and not much space there, it's just enough to pick it up and read a bit and digest it. Sometimes spirituality books can be really full on, but yours is very practical, easy to digest, easy to put in place. It's so just really simple. But I love that, because I think we need that with such a complex life. What are some of your self-care rituals that you love to do?
So some of my self-care rituals I really love. So I have like the morning one. I love dry body brushing. I find really stimulating for the nervous system. And then using like a really beautiful body oil. Obviously, meditation's a core thing. For me, self-care, also exercise. I'm not a natural fan of exercising. People are like, oh, it's my favorite thing. It's all I think about. I can't wait to get out there and put on my running shoes. I'm like, I gotta drag myself. But I try to exercise 5 to 6 days a week, even if it's just a little window, but it makes such an enormous difference to my mindset, to my sleep and my physicality. I also, for my self-care, I eat, generally speaking, really well. So I like to eat locally. I don't necessarily eat organic, but I like to eat as much as I can from the growers markets. Where I live, there's a lot of them, so it's easy to do. But I love cooking. There's like a whole piece there about nourishment and enjoyment that goes for me with food, and sharing food, obviously. I read. I read a lot. I'm a big fan of books, and I like to take care of what I call in the book my mind nutrition. So there's like the physical nutrition, and then there's the mind nutrition. 50% of our experience of the world is how we're thinking. And so making sure that I'm fertilizing the soil, planting the right seeds, pulling out the weeds is really, really important for the mind. Part of my self-care ritual is to ensure that I'm reading really inspiring content. And that's also reducing the stuff that gets in the way. So self-care for me is a lot about, and ritual is a lot about bringing in the goodness, but also taking out, pausing and removing the things that aren't necessarily working. I'll give you an example. This is a long time ago, but I used to do my yoga, meditate, and have my cacao coffee thing, like bulletproof coffee and all that. And then, go through this whole day and then finish the day by watching like an episode of Walking Dead, like the zombie apocalypse, kind of like high stress. And then I go to bed a mess. What am I going to engage with? What am I going to essentially digest through my mind has become a really, really important thing for me. And making sure that there's also some lightness and some humor. I've got a lot of friends that were meme obsessed, and so we're always like forwarding each other funny little things and, trying to keep life light and not too serious. I think I'll also preface one of the curveballs of spirituality and self-development and taking care of oneself is one can start taking oneself quite seriously and that process. And I think that it's important to still keep some lightness to it and have a good time and not become too holier than thou.
I love your self-care rituals. They're so amazing. And when it comes to your food, do you eat a lot of plant-based? You mentioned you eat seasonal, local.
I've been on and off vegetarian since I was 6. I'm much more flexible now than I have been in the past. My dad was a seafood chef, so we do tend to lean more into, if we're having animal-based protein seafood, we're really fortunate where we live. It's just a plethora of gorgeous local produce. So I cook a lot with everything that we can source and what we can grow as well.
That is so incredible. In your book, you had so many beautiful quotes, and I gathered you read a lot because they were beautiful quotes from other spiritual teachers and leaders and people. And I was like, she reads a lot. I always recognize when someone reads a lot too, because the book's really easy to read and feels good. So the book's incredible. I could talk to you forever about the 14-day mind cleanse and getting all of your tips on how we can detox for clarity, focus, and joy. But before we say goodbye to you, Jacqui Lewis, what is your hope for your newfound book readers?
My hope is that people pick up the book, they're not bewildered and overwhelmed by taking care of themselves, that they feel really empowered and confident to take those first steps forward so that they can feel more grounded and more expanded and more creative and dynamic, and that they walk through even just the first 7 days, because you learn a tool a day, and they start to realize that actually this isn't rocket science and that this is easy and applicable and easily integrated and shared with others, and that they can then start to become more of a pioneer of their own selves. And in my experience, you give people the first steps and the nudge, and it just all flows and rolls from there. So only good things can come from good things.
I love that. Only good things can come from good things. That's so beautiful. Now, how can we stay in touch with you after this podcast show?
Our website is thebroadplace.com.au. And our Instagram is @thebroadplace.
Well, thank you, Jacqui Lewis, for sharing your words of wisdom, your brand new book, and your insights, tips to help our global audience. You're incredible. I love the 14-Day Mind Cleanse by Jacqui Lewis, founder of The Broad Place. Make sure you grab a copy. I totally recommend it. We all are in need of a mind cleanse, especially after the last 2 years that it's been. So we'll say goodbye. Thanks, Jacqui. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I'm so grateful.
See you, lovely. Bye, Jacqui. Bye. I really hope you enjoyed listening into this podcast episode. I can't wait to hear what you think. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and to leave a rating and review so I know exactly how this podcast made you feel too. And be sure to share this far and wide with those you love and know, and to also sign up to my mailing list at SPAITGIRL.com. And together, let's feel good from within.